Hey guys, and welcome back to the realm of roller coasters. In this episode, I'm still declaring war on path covers, but also placing flowers, which, as you may know, is one of my favorite things to do in this game. I know that sounds really stupid, and I don't know if I've talked about this earlier in one of the Let's Play videos, because my memory is really bad. But, yeah, when it comes to placing flowers, there is one thing that I really notice about many people. What they do is they take one flower and they spread it all over a really large section of their park, or like in one area, and then they take another flower and then spread that flower around that area, and then take another flower, etc. So you get a really overall blend of flowers everywhere in the same sort of way, which is something that I really advise against. A tiny bit of variation between one area is always something that I like to get in, and it's just more realistic. Flowers aren't a natural thing. They are planted, and of course you want to have them in the nicest way, so getting some nice patterns in with colors, matching specific colors of flowers with other colors of flowers is really something that is not only fun to do in the game, but also results in much more realistic flower beds. So yeah, I always kind of like to do that a tiny bit. Also, don't place too many flowers, don't ever do that. I was already very hesitant when I was trying to place this many flowers in this area, as I was going to be. I think at some point that I did say that I wanted to fill all the planters with flowers. That is definitely not something that I was going to do, which is why I actually placed these more hedge-like things, as well as those other like cones and other little more fancy trees, but not exactly flowers in the planters, because I really didn't want to get this entire thing to become a colorful blend of just screaming bright colors and flowers. So that's why I kind of wanted to mix in a tiny bit of quote-unquote normal foliage as well, which is not only to relieve this area of being a complete and utter just flower bed for every sort of variation you can find. I really just wanted to get more trees in here to get foliage that actually has a height and make it look less like one very large open place. I know I've said that I wanted to make this area look open, but actually to get that more open, inviting look, I always like to get some slightly larger foliage in as well, to break up the very monotone sort of flat land over here. It's not always necessary to do that when you've got like terraforming going on. This is something, when I've got terraformed hills, for example, with flowers, I am less prone to usually get larger foliage in as well, but when it's a completely flat land like this with just paths and path covers, paths and planters, I want to get some higher foliage in as well to kind of blend in with the lower things and make this area look a lot more inviting and green overall. So that's why I did get that in the end. Other than that, by the way, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this water side. I was pretty much just placing this tree over here and a couple of other stuff as well, just to kind of close that gap between the Dutch area and the English area, which is honestly something that I still really have. The transition from the English area to the Dutch area is, I think it's pretty fluent. There is no really big change with path covers, even though there is a change. It goes pretty smoothly with the train tracks. There is no sudden clashes of buildings, but it is a very sudden transition, and would have liked to get a tiny bit more foliage in between it, just to make that transition from the Dutch area to the English area just a little bit more clear than it is right now. But in hindsight, there isn't really anything I can do about that. The only thing that I'll do in the future is add a couple of smaller trees next to the train track to make sure that I close it just a tiny bit more, but I also want to keep the entrance to the English area still open and not a complete forest. Forests are always fun to build and they always look good, but I usually only want to have them when I don't have so much building stuff going on. Having many trees and many buildings at the same time is something that I'm not really a big fan of. It's doable and it won't look bad, it's just you're breaking off both. With the buildings that you have, you're breaking the sort of forest idea that you could otherwise have, and with the trees, you are usually obstructing good facades and things like that. Of course, like I have said in the past, if you have a building that you're kind of on the fence about, it doesn't really look too good, place trees in front of it and you're fine. That's kind of how it works sometimes. But in this case, I do want to keep this area a tiny bit more open, which is also one of the reasons why I wanted to get this foliage in on the planters in the English area, because as you'll notice just by the planning of the ground, where this little brown sort of I don't even know, like it looks like wood chips terraforming is where I want to have future paths, and clearly the half of the entire English area is just paths. So really want to make sure that I get some good high foliage in on the places where I don't have paths running and where I still have some grass left that I can place foliage on. So I do get more of a green feeling to this English area rather than it being a complete concrete jungle. This is where I, by the way, had a bit of a trouble with path covers, and then in the end decided to just go with the terror painting, which, to be very honest, I'm still not sure if I want to go with this. There's just a problem that I was trying to find some good old grey bricks, but couldn't really find anything that was low enough to fit underneath the path covers that I had on the side, that was large enough to not cause any glitches, and that just looked good overall in terms of color. I had a couple of brick textures that were just really small, and that's a problem that I just run into sometimes when I want to have some really wide paths. At least this counts for me. If I want to have some wide paths, I also want to get a slightly larger texture, so you don't get a complete field of infinite bricks going on. And most of the brick sets that I did find had really small bricks, and so you could easily see the repetition of the texture through the path, which is something that I don't really like to see. It really just destroys any immersion that you'd have in the game. Which is because, you know, of course, you have a seamless texture on paths and they're all one tile wide, but as soon as you get a really large area where you fill it in with just path covers, you can clearly see the repetition and the borders of the tiles, and just not a really big fan of that. Which is why I, in the end, went with the terraforming, with the terror painting effects right now, but I might actually change that in the future. I'm not too sure about that. If I find a good brick texture, maybe even on Google Images, and make a simple, really simple path texture, doesn't even matter too much. I would even like to get that in more so than just going for the in-game terror painting. That was a really bad voice crack, by the way. I'm sorry about that. I'm mostly sorry to myself. But yeah, there's a bit of supports actually, which still I am really not so used to doing supports anymore. And one thing that I'm really afraid of when it comes to this coaster, looking in hindsight, is the fact that it is quite under-supported. Not necessarily the lift hill or the first section, but this last section is very under-supported, which I can chalk up to the freaking B&M connectors not being a finished set, and therefore it doesn't have pieces for every single track piece, so it's always a bit of a puzzle trying to get the right track pieces for the right sort of tracks that you have, and sometimes you just can't get a connector in and you leave a very large open area that is unsupported. But yeah, even though that's the only way that I can really work around it, I still feel not too happy about those open places where I don't have enough supports. At least that's what I feel like. Now you could have probably seen the brightness just suddenly increase, and honestly it looks a bit weird. Kind of have to get used to that as well. That is just because I went out of it for a while and I recorded a roller coaster, which means that a project is on its way. You may have seen it on Shy Guys World or the Creators Lounge. I am working on something really stupid in the background, which hopefully is going to be released soon, or might even already be released while I release this video. I don't know if that happens. Just for fun, I suppose, I'll say that I'm currently recording this the 24th of September. I'm not sure when this video will be released, so that might be outdated information at that point. Also, one thing, I just changed the catwalks, and this is the first time that I've ever used these catwalks, and I have to say they are absolutely amazing. They are only full tile placement. It doesn't have diagonals. It's not really a versatile set. It's also in beta, so do have to mention that, but it's Francis Coaster's catwalk set, and it's a new set, and I like it quite a lot. It's got some really amazing pieces in there. I should probably link it in the description. I actually do remember it took me quite a while to actually get those, and many people were nagging me trying to get me to download the set. And to be very honest, I need to thank you everyone who recommended me that set, because it is really good. It's really got some limitations as well. I don't know if that's because it's a beta or if that's just gonna stay there. But it does look really good in this coaster. You've got more choice of what the colors are going to be like than on the other ones. What are they called again? It was like Brendan. No, it wasn't. Gary Roach. That's it. Gary Roach's catwalks. Those were the most commonly used V&M catwalks up until this point. But honestly, I think these are better since you can choose more colors on them. They've got a much thicker and sturdier look to them. And yeah, I kind of just like them more. Now with that, I see that I am almost running out of time. I think the only thing that really happened in this last part was trying to finish these supports, basically. That was pretty much it. And a tiny bit of foliage over here, which was really just because I felt like doing that. And wasn't really sure what else I could really fit in. But with this, I think the supports of the roller coaster are finished, and I should be able to move on to the facades and the station in the next episodes. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time, in which I don't know for sure what I'm going to do, but it's going to be something else than what you've seen in the last couple of episodes. So see you then.